the book is important for me, at least, for two reasons. The first reason was I wanted to make aware or highlight to singers how important it is that when you do sing, you are conveying emotion. We are telling stories.
Conroy,
Hi, Petra, how are you?
I'm finding you.
I'm good, thank you. I hope the lighting is light enough, but this is as much light as I have at the moment.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, it's wonderful. Yeah. So, well, it's lovely to speak to you now on Zoom, and because I've spoken to many of your students.
Yes, thank you very much. I saw the interview with Kaya Kazi and I really enjoyed that.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. So, tell me, you're in Potchefstroom at the moment.
Yes. So I've lived here now for, this is my 11th year, and I moved to Potchefstroom from Dallas, Texas, where I
Yeah.
lived for almost 10 years. And prior to that, I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa.
Okay. And what did you do in Dallas?
So I first went over to Dallas on a scholarship to further my postgrad studies. And so I did 3 different qualifications, finishing with a doctorate degree in vocal performance. And while I was busy with my studies, I also then freelanced as an opera singer, singing recitals, also teaching. So I had a private studio, and prior to that, I also taught at the University of North Texas as a teaching fellow.
Oh, okay. And so you are actually a singer as well. Do you still sing opera?
Much less now. At the moment, my focus is more on teaching and research. I do a lot of research. So I actually have a book coming out now in July that concerns singing, music, and emotion. And then I do a lot more music directing. So the productions that my students are involved with, and we do a lot of productions also for arts festivals like Art Club, etc. So there's very little time to sing at the level that I would want to sing at, but yeah, I mean, it's not something that I've completely stopped doing. So when I do get the opportunity again, I would love to maybe do a little bit less of some of the other things and maybe some more singing.
But now tell me about this book that you wrote.
So this book actually started with a different project that I was busy with a few years ago. So a few years ago, I think it was around 2015 or so, I sang a concert of art songs, and you are obviously aware of the term Sehnsucht.
Yeah.
Which is this deep longing for something, and that was a theme that kind of went through all the art songs. And I was busy with a research project where I asked 4 visual artists to make a painting or a drawing or a visual representation of the songs. And in those in that concert, we looked at works by Roger Quilter, by Strauss, by Schumann, Dvorak. And then as one of the findings that I saw in the project, I saw that when you present music to anybody, to a lot of people, and there are words associated, that they are generally drawn to the text because text is referential. So you get explicit meaning when you've got text in front of you, but just because you have that text doesn't mean that there isn't explicit or actually, sorry, implicit meaning in the music structural features, in the voice of the singer. So in this next project that I worked on, I wanted to look at how these artists would make art, or how they would ascribe meaning to music if they didn't get the translations of the songs. So I gave them recordings of songs in French and German, and they didn't speak the language, and they had to just rely on the music structural features, so the melody, the pitch, all that kind of stuff, the harmony, harmonies, and they also had to listen to the singer, the quality of the singer's voice, so the prosodic elements of the voice, and it was a very interesting project. I chose recordings by Jesse Norman, by Renee Fleming, Ian Bostridge, and Susan Graham. And the book now, I was working on the book, so I wrote 9 chapters out of the 11 chapters, and 2 colleagues of mine also collaborated, each contributing a chapter. And so this book is being published by Aosis. It's a research, scholarly publishing company in South Africa. And the book should be out electronically in July. And the nice thing about this company is that, as you well might know, many publishing houses ask scholars to pay a fee. So you've got to subscribe, and then you can download the book or download the article. And because this is open access, anybody can just click on the link and read it, and it's open to anybody.
This is amazing. But now, and the artworks it's also possible to see the artworks that came from the music.
Yes. So the artworks, there's 20 of them, and they are all featured in the book. And that's the nice thing about using the method that I used in my book. So I used what is a pluralistic approach, so it involves artistic research and phenomenology. So artistic research is there to get tacit knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that's implied in music. So the same thing happens with art as well. So if you look at the artworks, you can actually analyze it and see how they ascribe meaning to music. So yes, the artworks, they can see that, and they can, and it's quite interesting when you look at the song I chose that Renee Fleming sings, so Beim Schlafen gehen from the Vierletzte Lieder by Strauss. There's that beautiful violin solo in the middle, and then there is the part where she starts singing Und die Seele unbewacht, the soul ascends again, and you can see that visually in the artworks. There's this ascending, they all really zoned in on that. And similarly in the other songs, I chose Erlkönig by Schubert, and the Spectre of the Rose by Berlioz, and then also, what else was there? I did another song because I absolutely love Strauss, so I also chose Im Abendrot from the Vierletzte Lieder that Jesse Norman sang. And yes, I'm sure I'm missing something, but it'll come to me now.
But tell me, did the paintings, was it up to your expectation? Did you think that they would get it? The message.
Absolutely. So this was my second project with these artists, and they amazed me in the first project as well with what they did. And what was interesting the first time was, for example, the very first project, one of the artists did Meine Liebe ist grün by Brahms, and I thought it was going to be this like explosion of color and everything, because that's how I see the music. But the artists interpret the music and they express those emotions that are evoked in them in very different ways. So actually, when you look at the different artworks, the one artist is a photographer, the other one uses watercolor, and then one of the artists uses oil on board as her preferred medium, and then the other artist uses a combination of oil painting but also collage. And so when you first look at them, they actually look very diverse, and you think, okay, this is your representation of Erlkönig, but they're all very different. But then when you actually start looking at elements of color, of line, of shape, and actually how they interpreted fear, which most of them perceived or even felt when they listened to the song, then that was their way of conveying that through their art. So yes, I was very happy with what was the end result.
Now, do you think this is also the audience that subconsciously we have this reaction or we have this feeling when we listen?
Absolutely, and so the book is important for me, at least, for two reasons. The first reason was I wanted to make aware or highlight to singers how important it is that when you do sing, you are conveying emotion. We are telling stories. And when you convey emotion, you have uh, the words which the people understand, but many times people listen to concerts and they don't know what you're
Yeah.
saying. So besides the fact that you still have to enunciate, you also have power in the prosodic elements of your voice. So how do you shape your the color of the sound? How do you play with word painting? How do you play with vibrato, not using vibrato? How do you, all those kind of things, using double consonants. So those things are, even though people don't understand what you're saying, the way you use a double B in Italian or in German or whatever is still very important, because that can elicit an emotional, an affect or an emotional feeling. And so that was the one reason that singers become aware of the power of their voice and the power of conveying emotion. And then secondly, the book also contributed to new knowledge on what is it, the listening experiences. How do people who listen to music ascribe meaning to it, first of all, and then secondly, also how do we experience emotion from music? And that's also why I chose these songs specifically from the Romantic era, because composers like Berlioz, Strauss, Schubert, they composed with what I coined in the book intentional affective compositional style. So they composed wanting to tell a story through the music, even if the text was not there. If you look at Berlioz's programmed symphonies or Strauss's tone poems, they were trying to tell a story through music. So yeah, so I find that very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a singer, but I find it extremely interesting, because I think also it's this idea that, like you say, that as an audience member, you don't always know the language that the song is being sung in, and or you not always know the background of the music. Like I find that artists and singers, they study, like you say, you understand what he was doing and why he was writing it. But for me, for example, when I go and listen, I don't have this background. So this means that I will still have the experience, even though I don't have the background.
Exactly. And you can have a positive experience, even though you don't know what the music means, but the music still communicates something to you. And yeah, that's the power of music.
No. Do you think in opera, of course, this is also now, it's an art form that has developed also and become very technical, and the study of it has become very technical, that also sometimes loses this that you are talking about, that you convey the message, that you don't just rely on the technique of the singing.
Well, my philosophy has always been that you need to have a solid technique so that you are able to convey these emotions. So a lot of times when I adjudicate something, or if I go to a concert or an opera, my colleagues and I will have robust discussions about, that soprano, she wasn't maybe technically that good, but boy, did she act, or wasn't it amazing? Or so for me, it's difficult to hear somebody who is emoting well, but there's just so many technical flaws. But that's the teacher in me. You know what I mean? I mean, this is what I do every day. I've got to correct vocal technique. So it's difficult for me to just forget about the technique. So I look for that balance, but it's important that when you do eventually gain enough technical control. So if you're singing Lucia's Mad Scene or any of the bel canto repertoire, actually, that it doesn't just become vocalises and scales and arpeggios, but that you really learn how to use vocal color, that you use your whole body, which is the instrument, which then conveys the meaning, the emotion, the drama. So yeah,
Yeah.
so ideally, I would like to have a balance. I would like to have my cake and eat it as
Oh,
well.
okay. Fair enough. We all do, so it's I
Absolutely.
cannot. But and now for who would want to read this book? For
So
who did
this
you write it? Yeah.
this book is for scholars. So
Mm.
it's if you look at the introductory chapter, it's a lot of theory. Um, so it is intended for a scholarly audience, but that does not mean that someone who perhaps is not an academic um, might also find worth in it. So
Yeah.
anybody can. It's written in a very accessible style, so that if you look, especially at the empirical data, so the later chapters in the book, and if you have an interest in how to convey emotion, that it might appeal to you as well. But yes, it is a scholarly book. So if you struggle with insomnia, you might want to read chapter 1 right before bed because it's a lot of theory. And then also, as I mentioned, the paintings and the artworks are absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's, just from a point of, this is somebody's interpretation of Renee Fleming's Beim Schlafen gehen or Jesse Norman's Im Abendrot. This is what someone from their understanding of the music put this down in a very skilled way, in a visual medium. So that alone, to me, I would, it costs nothing to download it. Nobody has to pay for the book, so
Yeah.
unless they want a printed copy, but you can just click on it and you can, I hopefully I would like to send a link to Miss Fleming and say, look,
Yes.
this is what these artists' interpretation of
Yeah.
your interpretation of Beim Schlafen gehen is. I hope that we've done it justice, or
Mm.
that you like what you see.
I just find it fascinating, first of all, that you had this idea. I think this is extraordinary, because I think it also, sometimes you hear people say, well, they don't go to the opera because they don't understand the language, or you think as a non-musician, that you think, well, I will only be able to get it, because of the language, or if I know the language. But yeah, this is absolutely fascinating that you could do this study and prove it.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I hope that people will enjoy it when they read it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they will. But now tell me, how did you start in music? Because you are very much, you're not just an artist, you're also academic, because of the studying that you do.
Yes, so I actually started at a very early age. My mom has a very beautiful voice, so she would also always sing. My dad's part of the family. My dad plays the organ. Two of my uncles are conductors. One lives in London. He sings in the choir there and also conducts a choir. One of my uncles is a composer. So I was always surrounded by music. And I started piano lessons around age 6 or 7, around there. And then the church that I attended growing up has a very, very big focus on music, and specifically, at least back then, on classical music, Western art music. So I was constantly surrounded by oratorio, by the Elijah, the Messiah, lots of Mozart, all the time. And I absolutely had a love of music because of that. And then something that the church did as well, they would, as soon as you could walk, they would put a recorder in your hand, and you
Okay.
would then start playing recorder in these ensembles. So it would be all the Sunday school children, and say for example it could be a small congregation where there would be five, or large congregation where there would be 20 kids or something like that, and then everybody would play recorder, and you would play hymns from the hymn book. So you would have soprano, alto, and then sometimes they would have a bass recorder, and some of the older some older congregants would then play some of those instruments. And once you've played recorder, then they would really encourage you, okay, you're a bit older, why don't you learn to play the violin or the cello or the trumpet or whatever? And this perpetuated the orchestras in the church. And to this day, they're very much involved in music education. So this is the New Apostolic Church, and they're still very much involved in music education in the Western Cape and in South Africa. So basically,
where exactly did you grow up? Where
in
is
Cape
this?
Town.
Oh, in Cape Town itself.
Yeah, so there's various congregations all over the country, but this was in Cape Town. And while I was in high school, I loved performing in our musicals. And when I was around 14 years old, a director from Cape Town Opera, Michael Williams, who was also the artistic director, he came to our school to audition school kids for a musical, a professional musical that was going to be performed at the Baxter Theatre, which is a company in Cape Town, or a performing house in Cape Town. And that was then my first professional engagement.
Wow.
Where, at the tender age of 14, when I sang in a production composed by Alan Stevenson. And as part of the production, he took us to a production of Mozart's Die Zauberflöte, which he was directing. And I remember sitting in the opera house at 14 years old, seeing the soprano come down from the ceiling, and just thinking, oh, I wish I could do this. But back then it really wasn't an option for me, you know what I mean? So I didn't think that I could make a living from that. So when I did go to varsity, I actually did study music, but I studied piano as my main instrument, and with the intention that I want to be a piano lecturer one day.
Yeah.
And then just by chance, it so happened that we had to have a second instrument at Stellenbosch University, and my singing teacher, or the person who would be my singing teacher, was in the office when I showed an interest in studying singing, and we went to his office. I sang something from our church's hymn book, and he said, "Oh no, you've got to do singing as a main instrument as well." So then I double majored with piano and singing in my first year, and after that, singing obviously then just took off. So yeah, so then I completed my bachelor's degree in singing.
Yeah.
And after that, I worked for Cape Town Opera for a few months. And then there was a wonderful voice professor from Dallas, Texas, who recruited students every year to go to America. And when she was in South Africa, I then auditioned with her, and then I got a scholarship to go over to Dallas.
But this is so interesting, because you when you were younger and you said you didn't think this is possible that you could sing, was it because you thought there wouldn't be the opportunity, or just that you wouldn't be able to sing?
No, so back then, singing for me was something that I did in the choir. I sang solos, but I never received any kind of formal voice training until university.
Oh, I see.
And also, you're under a lot of pressure to choose a career that's going to make money.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't really think it was an option. It was only, frankly, I didn't know enough. Ideally, I should have spoken to more people at the opera house, or while I was doing that musical, maybe see if that's what I wanted to do. But it was really only when I actually started taking voice lessons that I knew that this could be a possibility for me.
But I have also spoken to the tenor Sunny Boyd Ladla, and
Yes.
the one thing that is really, for me, quite sad is that many South African singers have to leave the country to make a career. And you, of course, also did go to Dallas. What was that also the motivation to go, because there weren't so many opportunities there?
So actually, before I went to Dallas, the plan, and most South Africans of my generation, we always had the goal of going to Germany and of going to Europe, because Germany's arts and opera houses are so well funded by the government. So that was my plan. And when Dallas happened, I obviously grabbed the opportunity. But with performing opportunities in South Africa, I'm on the board of Cape Town Opera. And Cape Town Opera, I'm so proud of our artistic director and managing director for everything that they've accomplished, especially now during COVID. I think they just published their financial statements for the last year or so. Every year they publish these documents. And it's incredible to see how many performances they did, even during lockdown. So if they weren't performing in person to a live audience, they still provided job opportunities for singers with some of the digital platforms that they did. So they made recordings, all with COVID rules and everything like that. So Cape Town Opera is really, really doing a lot for singers. For the small company that it is, it's touring now as well, so around South Africa. It hasn't really been touring internationally like it used to do in the past, obviously with COVID and all those kinds of restrictions. But the work that Cape Town Opera is providing for local singers is really exemplary. So what I would love to see is that we had 4 Cape Town operas or something in South Africa, because we've got so many singers. And this is something that the national government doesn't seem to realize, that we can actually provide work opportunities for so many South Africans. If you look at our unemployment rate, I think it's in the 30% now or something. And there are so many South Africans that love singing opera. And when you think of what it takes to put an opera together, it's not just the singers, it's the orchestra, it's the costume designer, it's the lighting crew, it's the backstage crew, it's people in marketing, there's so many job opportunities. And I just wish, like in Germany, the government would realize that if we invest in the arts, in opera, that we can really have sustainable work opportunities for so many South Africans.
I totally agree. And, it's like you say also, the talent is there. And you have in South Africa the big centers where this could happen. If I just think Durban and Johannesburg and Cape Town, and where else do you see a opera going? Come on, we have
absolutely, and
we have to say, what is the 4th one? Bloemfontein.
Yes, it's actually funny, because the government doesn't even have to build us theaters. The theaters exist. We just need the opportunity to have productions in those houses. But we have the infrastructure. So, and we have the singers.
Now, for your students, for example, how many students do you have?
So it varies. When I first started in Potchefstroom at Northwest University, we were 2 voice professors, and that year I had about almost 20 students, which was a bit crazy. And that also allowed the university to say, okay, the singing department is quite big. It's the biggest department, or biggest area in the School of Music. So let's have a third voice lecturer. And so now we're currently 3 voice lecturers. And because the voice lecturers don't only teach singing, so they also teach theoretical subjects like lyric diction. So, for example, Italian, German, or French lyric diction. We will teach performance practice, or explaining to the students, how do you sing in the classical style, how do you sing in the Baroque style, in the Romantic style, what is bel canto, and then of course also vocal pedagogy. So how does the larynx work, what is resonance, what is breath management, what is vocal support. So there are various other subjects that we teach as well. And then we also have quite a large postgraduate music student body. So many of us will also then supervise masters and doctoral theses. And besides all of that, we still have tons of admin, serving on committees, serving on the board, like I do with Cape Town Opera, being involved in examinations at other universities. There's a lot of other things that we do as well. So you really have to be careful how many students you can accept, taking into account everything else that you do. So for me, I think an ideal number for me would be about 15 students. At the moment, I've got about 10 or 11 students. So when we recruit students this year, there is still place for more. My colleagues will also vary in the amount of students that they take in, depending on how many postgraduate students they have, or maybe their focus is on something else. So they would like to teach maybe up to 18 or 20 students even, if they had the opportunity to do so.
But now, what is the prospects for these students to go on and sing? Because if you say now that there are not many theaters and opera companies, what do they do when they finish?
So our students don't only specialize in performance. We actually have a fantastic music education department, and we also have community music, and there are many other routes. So in any university or any music department, not only in South Africa, but also in America, at Juilliard, at universities or conservatories in Europe, not everybody is going to be a successful performing artist. So what I tell my students at the beginning of their journey is that it's my job to try and make you the best musician that you can be. And whether that is going to be a performing artist or a teacher or an entrepreneur or whatever, we need to find that niche for you. So when a student starts, I can't tell them, listen here, why are you studying music? You know, it's going to be difficult to, so you can't squash that passion that somebody else has and say, listen, yeah, you really need to consider doing something more practical financially. So, but that being said, I will like to say that in our department, in the last few years, we've had so many success stories of students who have had performing careers or are now in Europe, in America, performing. So I'm very proud of our department. I think my colleagues and I are really, we have the privilege of working with very talented students, and that we're also getting results from these students. But for those who want to teach, it's good that they have that technical background of how does the voice work, and everything else that I mentioned regarding style and interpretation and diction, so that when they do go into various communities to teach singing, that they have a strong foundation.
And now in schools in South Africa, what is the situation with music in the schools?
It really depends on the school. I mean, South Africa still has a ways to go to have parity amongst the various schools. So obviously there are going to be some some schools that have got a bit more money because it's a more affluent area or something. So um, we just did a school tour in the Gauteng region, which is up here in the north of the country, and we visited a lot of schools that have fantastic music departments. I mean, some of
Really?
these music departments look like the Vienna Conservatory.
Really?
It's really wonderful. And then you also have rural areas in Limpopo, in Mpumalanga, or in Northwest, where a lot of the students interested in studying music don't have the opportunity to do so, because at some of the public funded schools, you can study music at what they call a magnet school. So this is one school in an area that everybody who's interested in studying music needs to go to that school. And unfortunately, we need more of those magnet schools, or more music offered at on the basic education level. So it's really a mixed bag at the moment. We've got music that needs to be in many more schools as a subject, and then there's also other schools that are flourishing with the music offering that they are providing to students.
Well, at least that's a positive, that they are, that it does exist, and that it just shows that it is possible to do that.
Yes. I
Mm.
must say, though, also the Motsepe Foundation in South Africa provides funding for a competition in South Africa called SASKE. This is the South African Schools Choral Eisteddfod. And this competition occurs predominantly in Black schools in South Africa. And you would be surprised to see not just quantity of students participating, but also the quality of South African singers from a young age being able to participate in this competition. So that is something that the foundation does that really benefits music education in South Africa. They sing everything from opera to African music, and many times singers from universities that then go on to have successful careers. They are successful because their love for opera started in the Saskia competition or in their high school choir. And so it's very important that initiatives like Saskia continue to be supported in South Africa as well.
Yeah, and I also heard from singers that when you ask where they started, and it's all in the choir, or the church choir that they started,
Yes.
and that I find so fascinating that it's there, and that they and they also talk on a social level, that kept them focused, and it kept them out of trouble, or it kept them gave them some purpose, which is wonderful.
Absolutely. It goes again that you can derive so much purpose and meaning and happiness from music.
Yeah. But now, what is your wish for the future? Another
My
book.
wish for the future is to retire happily, maybe back in Cape Town.
Okay.
I don't know yet, but yeah, no, I think I just need a vacation so that I can stop thinking about retirement. But no, I would love for my students who wish to have performing careers that they have as many opportunities for them as possible, and that they really that the world is their oyster. And then for me personally, currently I'm also so I finished my doctorate degree in 2009, and as I started engaging with research, I really developed an interest in music and well-being, and music and emotion, as I mentioned to you earlier, or meaning and purpose. So I'm busy with a second master's degree in positive psychology. And so a lot of that those research interests, I want to combine with music, because music and well-being is already a very big area of study. And so that's basically what I'm going to be doing in the near future.
Well, that's a very interesting subject, but you seem to love studying.
Yeah, I think it's so there is a test that you can do. It's called Values in Action, or VIA. It's a free test you can do online, and through this test, you can determine what are your character strengths.
Yeah.
And so you can have character strengths like hope, gratitude, spirituality, curiosity, love of learning. I think there are about 24 character strengths. And yeah, so love of learning, curiosity is also one of my character strengths. So
Really?
I'll always have an interest in learning and improving on my knowledge, or yeah.
I'm going to do that test. Is it online? You
Oh,
said? Yeah, I want
yes,
to see what
I
my
can.
strength.
Absolutely, and I hope that you send me a message and share your strengths with me. I'd
Yes, yes,
love
I
to see
will.
that.
Absolutely, I will. But now I just want. Before you retire, you have to open still 3 other theaters. Remember?
I don't know if I'll be able to retire after that. I think that will kill me, but that would be great. Speaking about theaters around the country, my hope is that a company like Cape Town Opera can really be recognized as a national opera company, because that's exactly what they are doing. They're providing work for South Africans all over the country. And yeah, I really hope that Cape Town Opera gets the support that they need to continue with the work that they do. And hopefully, if that also then becomes more theaters or more opera companies down the line, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I've spoken also to a few independent singers in South Africa, and what I find so fascinating is just their will to do it, and in how innovative they are, and they organize their own concerts, and they keep going, and I think this is amazing.
Absolutely. I think that is that South African entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
South Africans, you can't get us down. We're going to do what
Yeah.
we need to do, and do it laughing. South Africans have a great sense of humor. And yes, that spirit, that entrepreneurial spirit is really wonderful. So I love seeing South African musicians really going out there and not letting circumstances get them down.
Yeah. No, that's true. But now I just want to ask you something, one more thing, and I know in Potchefstroom there won't be a problem answering this question. What is your favorite place to go for coffee, or a restaurant?
Oh, oh, I'm glad you asked that question. So,
Yeah.
when I just moved to Potch, they had their regular restaurants here, and for a while, the variety wasn't that much, but my friends will tell you, obviously, my first choice would be a restaurant called Vistas. It's at the Featherhill Boutique Hotel and Spa. So it's the only restaurant in Potch where you can really get fine dining cuisine. And what's nice is they will have. So I'm taking my mom and some friends on next week, or in the next few weeks. They will have a cuisine of a certain country every month. So
Oh.
a few months ago, we had Korean food at the restaurant, and besides the regular menu that they have, so they'll have these themed evenings. So in the next themed evening is an Italian evening. So then we'll have Italian food, and what they also do is they will have a wine from a specific wine estate come through to Potch, and then the chef, his name is Hanu, and he's really wonderful, absolutely gifted. And he will then prepare a 5-course menu with different wines and pair those with the different flavors in the food. So I absolutely love Vistas
Yeah.
at Featherhill. And we also have lots more coffee shops now. I love DeMilko. It's this coffee shop close to where I work. I love the fact that we also now have a Kauai. I don't know if you know the franchise, but it
No.
promotes healthy food and fresh food, and that's what I really miss in Potch, like having that fresh food. So yeah, I'd love to see more of that,
Yeah.
more fresh food, more sushi, more of those kind of foods. Even though my friends who come from the Cape would say, I don't trust your sushi places because you're in the middle of the country, you're not on the coast.
Oh,
But
I
the fish
see.
there is actually quite good. So yes.
Well, I'll put the link of those restaurants in the description of the
Oh,
video.
fantastic.
Yeah. Conroy, have a lovely evening.
Thanks, Petra, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah.
It was lovely
Okay.
talking with you.
Yeah, no, it was lovely talking to you too. And I'm going to do the test and I'm going to try and download the book. Can you say, I will, is there a link? You say that will
Yes.
only be in July.
It will be in July, but I will send you a link. So they've got a kind of a what's coming up in the next few months.
Yeah.
And so I'll send you that link, and then once the book is also finalized, then I'll send you that link for the download link for the book as well.
Because I can put this on the video as well, because that would be nice if somebody
That would be
listens and they
great.
would love to see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so what's nice is that link will stay the same, and
Yeah.
then it gives you a breakdown of the book and a little short synopsis. And if you look on my screen, you'll see there are two artworks, one over there and one over there. And those are both artworks from the project. So
Really?
on that side is actually the cover of the book as well.
Yeah.
And then shortly there'll also be a little video that I had to make for them where I just talk about the book a little bit more. So it'll all be on the same link, and then they can see that as well.
So I'll just post a link then, and that will then be what is available. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.